So we have invites going out this week. Is there any other invites going out later this week
Hey
that we
AJ,
have a plan for?
what's a wedding expense couples are always shocked about?
Delivery fees and like service fees, that kind of stuff.
What do you mean
Mm,
by that?
Like all those add-on fees that are there, it's crazy. Like,
Well, we don't
yeah.
have any add-ons, right?
no, we don't.
No, we don't.
No.
Another
Who might?
area,
Who might?
huh?
Like honestly, like most of the industry has add-on fees, especially decor, florals. I mean, it's crazy. Like they'll be like, "Hey, we're gonna take down tonight," then the fees will be insane for labor takedown at night because they have to pay overtime to staff and stuff. But sometimes it's sometimes it's just a money grab.
Yeah, we have to just be careful with that when we're like giving quotes to clients, like when we're collating and finding the right vendors, is we have to also think about, did the quote already list out like tax, tip, gratuity, blah blah blah, like delivery fees, etc. So it's just something you need to think about when you're budgeting, right? Wedding budgets are difficult. Couples have a hard time knowing how much is the right amount, and even then, the amount that they land on doesn't always feel like it's enough.
Today, we're talking about where wedding budgets actually go, what couples overspend on, and how to create impact without sacrificing experience. I'm AJ, head planner of Koka-Lattes events.
And I'm Elizabeth, head designer of Koka-Latte events, and welcome to the Events and Koka-Lattes podcast. This episode is all about budgets. Cheers.
Budgets are actually one of the toughest conversations to have.
Money always stresses people out, and I mean it's a big investment for one day, right? We can understand where that financial nerves come about, especially when, I mean, for most people this is their first wedding, right? They don't really understand how much needs to be allocated for their vision.
It really varies. I mean, it varies a lot city by city, suburbs versus downtown. There's so many different factors that go into it. I mean, I don't think it's really possible to cover what your budget should be city by city. That would be
That'd be like a 50 episode podcast then. Like you'd really need to break it down per state. But what also makes it challenging is like we can obviously give numbers and examples for like right now, but it's I think better to tailor this conversation to be more percentages, more general of like what should you expect? Because if you're watching this in like 5 years down the line, budgets might look a little different. You know, prices, inflation, there's so much that goes into what things cost even that actual specific numbers will change, and that's better to work with the planner that the couple has chosen anyway to figure out exactly how best to bring their vision to life. So let's just talk maybe how to break it down. Where do we start?
so. I always like to say that the big um, three, actually. So the big three that I always talk about in terms of where your budget spend is going to go is venue, catering, and bar. Venue, catering, bar usually tends to take up the largest chunk of your budget. At least here in Chicago, and that I always like to tell couples that your wedding, so either your venue, catering, and bar will probably end up equaling about 50, if not 60% of your total wedding cost.
Yeah, that's quite a sizable chunk. I don't think people realize that. And like within that, there's opportunity, right, to change that percentage, but that really depends on, do you want like an open bar? Do you want consumption bar? Do you want like no alcohol at all, for example? And like even who your caterer is. So like you can even fine tune those numbers, but couples should expect that a sizable chunk will go to the venue or venues and the food and drink for
Right.
everybody.
I always tell couples that if those big three are adding up and it's going over 60% of your budget at worst case scenario, um, the expectation of what you're kind of expecting to happen with your wedding for the final vision is not going to be as easy to achieve. Sometimes couples are like, oh yeah, I'll spend 75% of my budget on this and then I'll just be really simple on everything else. That's not even taking into account decor, photography, videography, which are also usually pretty sizable chunks,
Yeah.
as well as outfits and all those other little things that just keep adding up.
And in the current year, 2026, it's super common to have multiple outfit changes too. And that can add up so quickly. Even like the scale of decor, you know, couples might choose to invest on a really elaborate venue to then go minimal on decor, but it's not like you can completely cut out decor. You do need some accents to bring the venue to life, to bring your colors to life. So it's not like you could shrink that down to like 0%, for example, for
For
decor.
sure. Yeah, the best place that we've ever really been is when those three are taking up about 30 to 45% of the budget.
Ideally.
That's a really, that's usually a pretty good place to be. But it does depend city by city. There are some cities where the decor might just end up being the crazy high amount, and it really varies so much.
It does vary so much. And something that kind of like layers into this conversation is where people are getting their inspiration from, because sites like Pinterest and Instagram are great for inspiration, but that doesn't always equate to a couple's budget. So
Right.
it's good for inspiration, but again, take those with a grain of salt. Like that's a dream, and then you figure out how much of that you can bring to life. Maybe there's some creative solutions there, but you really have to think critically about the information you're seeing online and to compare that against your location, where you're living, where the wedding's happening, and all those other factors that we mentioned too. So there's some wiggle room in all of these categories, but it really just depends on what the vision is and what you're willing to flex on too. We're going to talk about priorities quite a bit in this episode.
For sure. Priorities is honestly kind of what dictates how everything goes. But it is so easy to have a budget just go over. I mean, so statistically, they say that 67% of couples go over their wedding budget. I honestly think that number, after hearing everyone talk, is lower than what the actual number is.
Underreporting.
Definitely seems like an underreport there. I do think that there are ways that you can be very smart about your budget, and I think that's what we need to be focused on more. I mean, there are many instances where you hear the budget of a wedding, and us with our experience, sometimes we go, huh, I did not think it'd be that high, or wow, I'm surprised you were able to get it that low. Really depends on who you're using, how they're pricing it out, and where you're really putting that money.
Yes. Investing in the right categories for what A is the couple's priorities, but B, what creates the most impact and memory is super vital to creating like the best event for the couple.
No, I definitely agree on that. So we actually have the budget conversation very early with our couples. In fact, it's actually part of our initial consultation is, which I am taking every single one of those because I want to know the couple that I'm going to be working with, and I want them to know who they're going to be working with. Definitely put that face to the name. But we're having the conversation early. We're like understanding what their budget is, what their goals are, what their initial vision idea is, and that helps us dictate whether or not we feel that they are the right couple. There are instances where we're like, hey, this seems reasonable, but then later on it doesn't seem as reasonable, and then but that's what our initial consultation for is, because we also don't want to spend all this time trying to find something if it's just not attainable. Uh,
Yeah.
I always like to say that time is money. That's why DIYing is always a great way to find ways to save money. But at the same time, do you have that time to put in? Do you have that experience to be able to make the best decisions that are fulfilling it? And sometimes even the expectations that we see on like Pinterest or Instagram or that, it doesn't necessarily actually show what it takes to create that.
Yeah, sometimes the tutorials seem very simple and straightforward, and then you realize you don't have everything you need, and there's an additional financial investment to get all of like the tools or experience, etc., to do that DIY. So if DIYing is your jam and you're great at it, more power to you. Do that, like bring that to life. It's a great way to personalize it and actually put your additional like actual labor of love, physical labor of love into your wedding. But sometimes that might not be the right choice for every couple. Something that I love that you do is also you're looking at like the guest count compared to the budget to see if they're congruent.
Guest count affects budget so much.
It really does.
It is crazy. So I actually like to tell couples, interestingly enough, and there are exceptions to every rule. I mean, that really is how it works. But I like to say that when you're, like, let's say you have a budget and what you assume is a general budget for an area, and you have a guest count of 100. And you're like, oh, I want my guest count to now be 200, so I just need to double my budget, right? I actually say no. Budgets are way more exponential than you think. When you have a guest count of 100 versus a guest count of 200, the general budget actually more than doubles. It's because your options for venues decrease, your options for who is available to work that event decreases, the options for who is able to actually manage that many people decreases, even the design and decor, the photographers you're going to need, the logistics aspect, everything increases by more than two, actually. Even venues, if you have 100 options for a venue that can hold 100 guests, there's usually 75 venues that can hold 200, and even 50 that can hold 300. So with that, the cost just goes up a lot. So really take into account your guest count, who you really think is key and necessary for your wedding. And based off of that, you can make a good estimate on what you believe is a great guest count budget.
Yeah, because the last thing I would advise couples is to plan a low budget for a high guest count, because then you're not going to be able to deliver on a good guest experience. You're going to have to cut way more than you think. And DIYing things for a large guest count can be more time consuming than I think couples realize. So, as you're thinking about budget and the expectations, like taking into account your vision, maybe like what kind of aesthetic the venue and the decor will look like, how maximal you want that to be, or minimal for that matter. You also need to take into account what you want guests to take away from the event. Because if you just want them to show up, maybe a small elopement, and then you just throw a big party. 'Cause as soon as that, we've seen it with a lot of things, as soon as that wedding label is not on there, prices go down.
Right.
But also the level of service will potentially change as well. Vendors, when they hear wedding, are more, not necessarily like focused on doing better, but there is a higher bar that all of the vendors need to meet and clear to make sure that your day goes successfully. And that level of service is really important for a wedding. So like don't skimp on that. Think about the guest experience. Think about picking the right vendors as well.
No, for sure. And that's why spending more money does not necessarily equate to a better wedding.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's really about how you use it. It's about setting those priorities, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I mean, we've attended weddings where the budget has been very high and it has not felt that way in terms of the actual experience. But then there are weddings which honestly have been extremely memorable, and they were done for very little compared to what it is. In fact, we did a wedding, one of the first weddings that we actually did initially, what we did in under $30,000, and it was for 125 guests that we planned and everything. And everyone was so happy. We had put all of the decor money into just a ceremony space because it was an outdoor space. It was wonderful for them. We really focused on just personalizing it, prioritizing it, and making sure every guest had the smoothest experience. And it wasn't about being expensive. It wasn't about spending a lot of money. It really was about making everyone remember the good times, the union, the emotions, the celebration. I mean, people still talk about it to this day. So
Yeah. It was for that wedding. Let's dig into that a little bit more. So their priorities were a gorgeous outdoor ceremony, and B, they just wanted their guests to have fun. So they were able to bring in lots of different activities for their guests to do. They kept their reception space actually quite minimal in terms of decor, just kind of very simple centerpieces.
for sure.
They picked like a caterer that was like within budget that could accomplish like all the different dietary restrictions, but they didn't need like the extra fancy plates. They didn't need all of those chargers. So they were able to really focus on bringing in the activities, which is what made that
That
wedding
one
so
was so
memorable.
fun. The number of different activities they had there was so fun. They turned that entire outdoor ceremony space into an activity space later.
Yeah.
And all the guests were so happy.
Outdoor
Having the
games.
fancy charger plate, no one cared
No,
at all.
no.
And that is what it's about. That's about spending your money wisely. Now, if you have a higher budget and you can add the charger plates and all of that, sure,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it
Creates
at
a
all.
beautiful aesthetic.
Creates that aesthetic, creates that mood, but you just have to know where your priorities are and where you can and can't spend money on. Because, as I always like to tell couples, no matter what your budget is, you have to prioritize because you cannot have everything be a high priority.
Yes.
I kid you not, and this is going to sound controversial. If someone came up to me today and said, my budget is $10 million, I could spend it like that for a wedding. I know exactly where everything would go, and we would easily go through that money.
Yeah.
But you don't need to.
No.
That really is where it is.
Just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's like luxurious or good. It really depends on prioritizing that impact, right? Which we'll get to. So prioritizing the right categories will then in turn create the right impact that you're looking for and the right memories. So let's maybe get into that. What should couples prioritize, or how do they end up coming down to that list of what do they want to focus on?
So we go through with them specifically on 10 different factors that we have, and we ask them to rank them based off of priority. There's things from music and entertainment to guest experience to photo up to how it photographs to outfits to catering and bar to venue to indoor outdoorness, and we ask them prioritize it, budget, there's all these different things that we ask them to rank, and we tell them you have to rank it. And it usually takes the couples a little bit of time in order to come back with how they want everything ranked. Because
Right.
it's something they don't think about. They don't think about the ranking that we do.
And in addition, like this is a good collaboration exercise for both parties, both sides of the couple to come together and really understand what's important to each of them and come to a decision.
No, it definitely is. So if a couple is like, hey, if it ended up being where outfit is the second lowest priority because everything else just ended up higher, you don't need to spend an insane amount of money on your outfits. Like, put that money
Yeah.
elsewhere.
And you can even get creative with that. Like if there's dresses you could upcycle or outfits you can upcycle, thrifting has become super popular again. So there's ways that you can look at outfits differently, for example. I mean, that's true for any category, right? Like obviously maybe like thrifting's not the right answer for all the categories, but for the categories that are less important to you compared to the other ones, looking at those differently will be able to still meet your vision without having to spend the big old price tag on it. So let's talk about the most important ones. So what advice do you have for couples on spending money on their top priorities? Like what should couples be thinking about?
So the way that we function, actually, we really like to emphasize that the biggest impact on budget that you are going to have is the venue. The impact that venue has on budget is the greatest impact, because every restriction you're going to have on your wedding
It's going to be from the venue.
is going to be from the venue.
Yes.
Whether it's how it looks, whether they have catering restrictions and vendor restrictions, whether they have specific rules on what you can put on walls versus
What decor you can even bring in too.
if it's let's say it's like an Indian wedding and you need a live fire and they don't allow a live fire, all these things that are most of the time impacted purely by your venue. It's why we spend so much time on venue compared to every other vendor. Because once you are locked in on that venue and it's booked, you
That's
are
the
dictated
parameters.
by the flow of what that venue allows you to do. And it's difficult. I mean, we've had, and it's been a really nice change recently, which we've been appreciating. But until recently, and even now, so many venues have like catering restrictions, or which has not worked out well for so many of our multicultural weddings. Multicultural weddings, I have been fighting tooth and nail to get venues to be more open, to allow anyone to come in that has catering licenses. And I understand they're like has the appropriate licenses or can get it. So that way they're not restricted on having food. The number of we have a couple right now from Ghana, and they were like, I want Ghanaiese food in their wedding. And the number of venues available to them is so little.
Yeah. I do wish there was more progress. I agree with you on that because there's some absolutely stunning venues that like I wish would work for the couple, but because of those catering restrictions, it's hard to. And like again, we understand that venues are working with certain parameters. Maybe it's like a historic building where only like certain vendors have experience or like approved to work in there, but your venues are restricting themselves a little bit with who can be there. And in this day and age, like diversity is so important, and being able to celebrate everyone's love and everyone's culture is just a joy. I mean, it's just kind of spreading joy for everybody. So I do want that to change. I want that to change so badly. But something else to think about with venues, in addition to food restrictions as well, is their drink packages as well. Because sometimes it's included, sometimes not. And then you even have to think about those contracts as well. We've even run into some venues where there's additional fees when the catering isn't provided through the venue, I mean.
Yes, I agree. And I think we'll get into that in a little bit too. But
Jumping the gun there.
that's perfectly fine. But yeah, determining your priorities really is the way to go. So I always like to say venue dictates everything. After that, think about what's important to you. If what's important to you is having the most Instagrammable social media photos, which we've done those too, then put all the money in the decor, the photo booths, the back wall drops. Like if that is your priority, and that can be your priority, then that's where you should put your money in. If your priority is on making sure that every guest 20 years from now is going, hey, that wedding was so fun, I had so many things to do and things like that, then maybe focus more on how the guest is going to be walking through, what they're going to see, what they're going to smell, those kind of impacts, because what they're going to remember. Think about that side more. If outfit is something that's really important to you, like we have couples, like if you have a background in design or fashion, then I understand why outfits are very important to you. It makes complete sense because you want to showcase your work, like what your forte. So it really is kind of playing to your strengths, and while at the same time also not making everything a priority.
Looking back at our portfolio, I think a general guide that we've seen is when budgets follow what's important to the couple and not trends, those weddings end up feeling more timeless and way more personal to the couple.
No, it definitely makes sense. I think that's why even no, we always like to say that it's not always about how you. It's not about being luxurious per se. It's about creating value.
Yes.
That really is what it is.
100%.
That's why even we've struggled to call ourselves luxury wedding planners. I don't think we've ever really like mentioned it much as being luxury event planners. We always say we're boutique end to end because we're not focused on just spending the money. We're focused on making a wedding look more expensive than it is. And that's through just the various aspects of what a guest is going to remember at the end of the day.
Definitely. Again, it's not about how much money you spend, but like how you spend it, right? To create that impact. So impact goes back to priorities, as we mentioned. We're going to end up sounding like a squeaky wheel when we talk about priorities this episode. But that's really where couples can get creative because florals, decor, very easy for couples to go overboard and actually spend more in that category than they even realize. Even decisions from whether it's live or real touch silk or even just like faux florals from like your local craft store, all of those impact how much you're spending on decor, and it also depends on the height as well. The higher you go in terms of decor, like vertically, the more expensive it is. So think about decor, especially as it relates to venue. When you're doing those venue walkthroughs, those venue tours, think about what accents you need to put in or how much decor you need to pull in to bring your vision to life. If it's a white box, you're going to need to do a little bit more to personalize it. But if it's already potentially with some beautiful architectural details or some unique like niches already, then you might not need to even do too much. So when you're thinking about your budget and you're looking at your venues, like all of those other decisions, even after food and drink and venue, matter as well to your budget.
Exactly.
Okay, let's dive into the elements of a wedding and give some more color.
I think budget is the one place where we should be as precise as possible just to help couples and also to help vendors make better decisions because honestly the
Knock on
wedding
wood.
industry and the wedding tax is something which I understand but also hate at the same time. I truly have a love-hate relationship for it. But yeah, no, let's start from the beginning. So we always prioritize that the first thing to look at is venue. So let's talk about venue. When determining the price of a venue and what you feel is the right price, and what to look for when determining if it's the right budget is one, how much decor do you have to put in order to actually personalize the space? It does not matter how fancy the white walls are.
It's white walls at the end of the day. It's going to photograph like white walls.
Exactly. If there's a venue that has extremely pretty like etching and architectural details and that, the actual decor cost goes down. So then if that venue costs more, it's a bit more understandable because it's taking the place of your decor.
Yes. When looking at venues, look at decor, look at flow, but then also look at what the venue's providing. That's going to be a running theme through the vendors, right? But if the venue, for example, is higher priced, but they're providing like the tables and the chairs and the linens and potentially other add-on services that are cost effective, that might be worth it over a venue that's like cheaper, but it's just like a box.
Right, exactly. And yeah, so definitely look at that. So definitely look at what they're providing. Some places do provide the tables and chairs and that. Some of them have a bar package built in that you have to go with. Check it out. See if it's worth it. See what their pricing on that is. Just saying they have a bar package doesn't mean that it's a reasonable bar package. I mean,
what if you're paying $20 a person for like
per hour
house
like
vodka,
that is yeah, things like that
might not be worth it.
It might not be worth it. See what options they have, whether it's open bar, consumption bar, how that works out. Even check out, like you said, the guest flow. There's a venue that is a fantastic venue that I love, but their bridal suite is in the same space as the cocktail hour, which from a flow standpoint is atrocious.
It doesn't make sense. Like, where does the price? Anyway, we'll deal with logistics later. But things to think about as well is like, do you need stanchions? Do you need like pipe and drape curtains to like section things off? You have to think about flow and also like where your guests are walking to, because potentially, if your kind of ceremony reception space is different and like a far walk from your cocktail, you might want to consider decor in that space too. So guest flow can impact
even like getting to the ceremony space. If you have to take elevators and there's only 2 elevators available for 200 people, guess what?
Take a while.
It's going to take a while. There are going to be people there sitting at the elevator waiting to go up. Doesn't mean it's a bad venue. It just means that you may have to do something from a guest experience standpoint to make that wait good. Fine. Yeah. Maybe you have the parents there greeting guests and chatting with them. Maybe you keep the guest book down there. Maybe you decorate it out so it's a photo space, so that way while people are waiting, they can take photos. Things that you have to take into account just from the guest flow standpoint. Yeah, you're right. Even if the walk is really long from from ceremony to cocktail hour,
Place to place.
you might want to decorate that walkway so that way it's something more fun, so it doesn't just feel like you're being huddled through like a tour group. Uh,
Yes. So you're not walking like sardines to your next place. I will say, as an aside, I love using those spaces to give the guests a window into the couple's lives. You know, taking them, you know, either through the length of their relationship or, you know, their lives together, different milestones. But think of those liminal spaces as a way to elevate your experience. But no, that comes at, you need to spend the money on that, right? You need to spend your budget on that. So all of this is a balance of what's important, what's not.
Right.
So venue takes up a sizable chunk, but there's a lot that can feed into that and a lot that influences the rest.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there are venues where like you can do all your decor here, but if you want pipe and drape, then it has to be through our company, and you're like, oh, okay. And then suddenly pipe and drape cost goes way up, and you're just like, I, how did it come here? You
Yeah.
know?
And for those that aren't familiar, pipe and drape is essentially these metal frames where drapery is hung from, which creates a beautiful visual. But depending on how high, how wide, etc., it can add cost. But a great way to section off spaces, a great way to add different textures as well, or different backdrops to spaces. Continue.
I also like to say that when you're looking at venue, keep into account how tall the decorations need to go in there. I always like to say that decor gets more expensive the higher up it goes. So
Yes.
hanging from the ceiling, significantly pricier than, if it's even an option, than putting something on the table or the ground.
Yeah, and think about it just from like logistically, right? You need someone on ladders to go up there. You need to make sure it's secured so that like nobody ends up getting hurt if something like happens. Knock on wood, nothing does. Logistically, right? Way more expensive to do some hanging installations. The visual impact, though, if you can spend the money on hanging things, visual impact is phenomenal having things hanging. But it might not work in
Right.
work in the budget, might not work in the venue, as you said. Some venues don't allow hanging installations.
And so we don't continue on and on about venue. The last thing I always like to say is read the contract on what it says you're getting for the price. And be very careful of some words in there, such as may, maybe, could,
Yes.
those kind of things. I remember there was one contract that we looked at for a venue, and it said they may provide shuttle service to and from the hotel. And I'm like, that doesn't mean they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't rely on that maybe clause.
Exactly. So we had to make sure that's corrected. Even check and see the other tricky fees and add-on fees that are just hidden in there. For instance, there are so many venues that say, hey, you have to provide 15% of your catering as a fee to the venue. It's very popular in a lot of venues in major cities to do that. And that can be something which you won't know until you read the contract. So definitely know where your money is going and exactly what is included and not included. It is fine going back and forth over and over again on that contract until you are happy with what is in there.
Yeah, and those contract negotiations and that contract review is something that we as wedding planners do. We make sure to look that over, especially if it's a venue we haven't worked with before, read their terms closely, understand exactly what isn't providing any limitations, etc.
And
So,
verbal promises mean nothing.
Nothing, no.
Absolutely nothing. Okay, so then next, let's talk about catering. I think catering is the one that surprises a lot of couples the most in terms of what the fees are.
Yes, and again, like there's some variability into like what different caterers provide and what you need to think about. So why don't you kick us off? Like when you got into the industry, what surprised you the most?
Those extra fees, and that the food is usually, if you're working with a full-fledged catering company, you are paying for the convenience of having them provide the tables and chairs potentially, and the labor and the staffing fee and the delivery fee and all of those fees. I mean, there are instances where the food ends up being 25% of the actual catering cost for just food. And I am honestly very, very, still to this day sometimes I'm so surprised at how they do that. It's a reason why we work so much with restaurants and have our own staffing fee a lot of times. We love working with caterers, but sometimes they just have absolutely crazy fees put in there.
Yeah. I mean, to one extent, like from the caterer's perspective, I understand, right? They have to have staff, setting things up, especially if you want a full service caterer, right? It's one less thing for if you're planning it yourself to think about or whoever's organizing the event, one less thing to think about, but then you are limited to their options and you have to pay that premium where they're providing that full service.
Yeah, so we usually work with full-fledged like catering, wedding catering companies. Times we usually work with them is when a venue has a restriction on them. Just with the sheer number of multicultural weddings that we do, it usually ends up being because we have the experience of it, just working with local restaurants and having a staffing company and having rental company and just being able to put all logistics together. But that does require more planning. So that's something
Yes.
that the couple has to be okay with. Either planning themselves or if they have a planner, then we can handle those logistics for you. There's definitely a lot more moving parts though, but otherwise you are definitely paying for that convenience. And sometimes you see these fees and you go, I don't know why you're charging me so much for plates or why you're charging me so much for staffing on top of this food costing so much. And there's definitely that wedding fee, that wedding tax I feel is they're the greatest with catering companies. And I really do struggle with them a lot. And that back and forth
Yeah.
just to make it a bit more and what I feel is reasonable or a middle point.
Yeah. Taking kind of a higher level view at catering, when evaluating which caterers, right? I mean, any like cultural, historical, or like important foods in the relationship are something to consider, but what also greatly affects the price is, are you doing plated versus buffet versus even just like live stations, for example, if you want live chefs. So when you're trying to evaluate what's important to you, think of like the cultural history that you and your partner have. Think about what type of guest experience you want, because a private chef, for example, will give a very different experience than like a buffet style dinner. So think of what you want that to be, and then if that works in your budget. Because if you have a private chef, that's great for small elopement weddings, but like one private chef for like 200 people, that's an overwhelming job. You're going to need some support and a couple other chefs there to help.
You know, interestingly enough, one trend that I've noticed is that buffets are actually nowadays starting to cost about the same as plated dinners in a lot of sense, in a lot of ways, just
Yeah.
because of the sheer amount of food that is having to be created is higher in buffets. So that cost is making up for the plating and staffing cost that's required. So it's interesting. Sometimes if you approach it as, hey, I have to go buffet because it's the more affordable option, it may not be. Plating can actually be the more affordable option. It just depends on who you work with and what they are providing. So it's obviously something to explore, check out the tasting, see if what you feel is worth the price and what isn't worth the price, and go from there.
For sure.
It also includes like another thing to take into account is what you're getting for that money. Once again, read those contracts. Does it include trash being thrown away, or do you have to handle that yourself at the end of the night? Does it include the plates? Does it include the cutlery? Does it include the tables,
The glassware,
the
even.
glassware, all of those things? And that extends out to even the bar side. I mean, it's very similar how you approach that. So,
Because doing it yourself and having like a local bartending company come in and you're sourcing all of your drinks from wholesalers might not end up being cheaper than just like providing like a consumption bar through the venue, for example, or through the caterer. When you're planning a wedding, you should be evaluating all options and then choosing then the best one for your budget. But try and mock up those costs as best as possible. So like if you know your favorite wine from a wholesaler is like X number of dollars, but then per glass, like a local bartender is going to be like X number of dollars per glass. You got to weigh that up and kind of think like, what do you think your guests are going to drink more of? And then use that to try and guess which one is going to fit your budget better.
for sure. And just tell them what your budget is. If they can work with it, they'll tell you they can work with it.
Vendors do want business as well. They're not going to just like highball you to highball you. They do want business and they're going to be reasonable. And you can always shop around for quotes and talk to multiple.
Yeah, even with bars, you can always, if you want to, you can ask them, hey, like, hey, what if I bring my own alcohol? Is that an option? You know, just ask them what ways there are to try to bring the cost down that works better for you.
Okay.
Ask your planner to negotiate for you.
Yeah. that's one area where you can ask your planner to help negotiate and help with that evaluation as well. But we as planners are used to working with vendors, used to working and understanding what sort of wiggle room there are in quotes. And especially with our complete package service, where we can run the wedding expenses through us, we have greater flexibility to help negotiate that down and pass the
Right.
savings on to you.
Yeah,
to our
and we
couples.
know what to expect and what general price points are usually too, with experience. So we can advise you like, hey, this quote seems reasonable. This seems a little bit high. This seems a little bit low. Feel free to ask them, so that way they can provide the best what their experience is for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Next, I think we should talk about planners and what you should budget for in planners.
Ooh. Sensitive topic. Okay.
Um,
Potentially.
with the planner, find out what is included, what is not included. More so, what is not
Not
included.
included. Yeah.
Because the list of included, honestly, is usually very high. It's so hard even for us to actually have a list of everything that's included because there's so much. So we have a much easier time telling you just what's not included, and that makes it easier. But also, ask them up front if they have any required vendors or not that you have to work with.
Yeah, it depends on the type of planner, right? Because some planners like have a very specific venue that they like working. They have a very specific type of event that they like creating, and if that matches your style, great. That's probably a good planner for you. But if your vision is something different, that might not be the best fit for you to work with long term. I see another area of variability is like in terms of signage, what planners include versus don't include, and even I think you're going to get into this next, but like time allotment as well.
Yes, some planners are like, I will only be there for 8 hours on your wedding day. I don't think we've ever spent less than 16 hours on a wedding day.
We also though like to be higher touch with our
for
weddings
sure,
though.
for
We
sure.
like being there when hair and makeup is there, right, bright and early with the
For sure.
with the bride or the couple getting ready. So I think just like a little bit more
But if
oversight,
you only
but
need the 8
it's
hours,
important.
then you're fine. But if you need more hours, figure that out beforehand. Also, when you are reading that budget of that planner, confirm who's going to be there on your wedding day.
Yes. We've heard a lot of complaints from other people we've talked to in the industry where they're used to working with one person and then on the wedding day they get, or like shortly before, they get switched to a different person. And handoffs, as best as you can prepare for them, are typically a little clunky.
It usually is. So definitely see what is in the budget, whether they're percentage based or fixed. That's a key
For planners,
key factor. And if they're percentage based, make sure they're one that doesn't require
Specific vendors.
Definitely find one who usually is more so on the, you can still work with most vendors in that. Because it all comes down to honestly is commission, right? Commission is rampant in the wedding industry. We're an anti-commission company, so we don't take any commission, and we haven't yet. So we pass those savings on if there ever are any, or if they ever like, hey, you get a percentage. We're like, oh yeah, just give it to the couple. But honestly, that can be a reason why sometimes the price of something can look crazy high. Sometimes sometimes catering companies have to give commission to a venue, to a planner, to a rental company, and that's why their catering fee looks as high as it is. And it's not their fault necessarily, but
Yeah.
it just is how it is.
As a couple going into those contracts, though, the commission fees is not necessarily something that's going to be easy for the couple to suss out. But just be aware that that could be influencing the fees
And ask that.
behind the scenes.
Ask that to the vendor if there's any commissions or any other specific fees. Just
I
be
mean,
upfront.
have you found vendors to be upfront about that when you're going in as like the couple itself and not as like your planner role?
Usually no, but
Never hurts to ask, I guess.
Never hurts to ask. We've had instances where they haven't told us that there's a commission, but suddenly it appears on a contract, and we're like, where'd that come from? It's something which is really hard to regulate sometimes, and it can be tough.
Goes back to reading your contracts very carefully and to have people that are familiar with the wedding industry and contracts in general
I-
reviewing that.
I've actually had instances where it's not even in the contract that there's a percentage that's given, and then they'll have that percentage going to. We actually had an instance of this where the caterer had a percentage of commission going to the
Wow.
venue, and it was never, and it's not in the contract for the venue or the caterer, but it is. They were one of the preferred vendors that was required for that venue. I told them straight up, I'm like, it's not in any contract or anything. You can't enforce this rule, and they were able to remove it off. But it's crazy sometimes what they try to get away with. So definitely read those contracts very carefully, and having a good planner can go so far for that. So then let's talk about photography. I think photo and video are the two in budget where I like to say that is the most objective in terms of
Yes.
budgeting for it. There are wedding photographers of various budgets who do various qualities of work, and honestly,
It sounds like there are some people you don't know why they're charging so much. We won't touch into
there are
that
also
too
some
much.
who I'm surprised are charging as little as they
So
do,
little.
and it just is what it is.
I mean, you kind of get into the subject of art and art being subjective, right? So at that point, when I guess my advice to couples would be when they're picking photo and video is find first a photographer that has the style of photos and videos that you like, and then try and find one within budget, because you have to like the photos at the end of the day to want to book that photographer
And honestly,
videographer.
trends matter a lot in terms of what the photographer's pricing is going to be. If you're really into editorial right now, the price for an editorial photographer is going to be higher than a traditional.
Because demand for them right now is higher.
Exactly. So that just is how it is. So keep that into account when trying to determine who the best photographer and videographer is for you as well.
And know how many, when you're reading the contracts as well, know how many photographers and videographers are going to be there that day and how many you need. Because, for example, 2 photographers, not great for a wedding of 500. You're going to miss things. So you also need to think about like the scale of your event and how many people you need for coverage.
So the 3 things I actually tell couples should always look for when trying to determine who the best photographer is one, in terms of budget, is one, who are you actually getting your wedding day? We actually don't work with companies usually, unless they're like they've been picked beforehand, where we don't know who the photographer is already. It usually is the owner of that company or a freelancer, and that's how we like it because we know exactly what we're going to be getting. There are companies out there who will hire whoever it is last minute and is available, and those photos never turn out as well. Even if you feel like you're saving money, there usually is a photographer who's available in that price point who will do a better job if you just know who they are. 2, how many photographers you need, and 3, how many hours are going to be there. Hours is what dictates really the most. So if you need a photographer for 8 hours, that's the package. If you need them for 12, that's the package. Predetermine that out. Those are the 3 things to really keep into account when determining what the right budget is for a photographer.
Yeah, and to appropriately know how many hours you need, you kind of need to think generally high level, like what your timeline is. Because if you know that you want, for example, a 5 p.m. ceremony, but you really want a late after party, like 8 hours might be sufficient, but then you might be missing the getting ready shots. But that's where you can think about, like, can you stagger if you're having 2 photographers? There's ways to get creative, right, within your budget.
Like you don't need 4 hours of dancing photos. I mean,
after a while, everybody's going to look the same.
if not more drunk. So
Those might end up being more fun photos, honestly. But think about what photos you want to capitalize on and like what you want to be the majority of your wedding photo
definitely.
album.
And then I think the last one that we'll touch on here is decor.
Hold on, before you get that, I just want to say, like, anything that we've said for photo also applies to video, right?
sure.
You want to make sure that the video style is what you're looking for. You want to understand how many videographers you're getting for how long as well, and what's important for you to prioritize in terms of capturing that. Sorry, continue.
You're good. And then I think decor is the last one that we'll touch on this topic of how to budget for it. Decor, like I always like to say, it's really easy to go from $5,000 to $50,000 in a blink of an eye.
If you're not careful.
Even if it looks like it'd be something easy to do, there may be something structurally or things that are just making it way more complicated than you can imagine. So just because something, when you have a vision, I always like to say it's better to go to a decor or florist being like, this is my budget. These are the kind of flowers and color palettes that I'm looking at. What can you create in this budget for me? let them drive that conversation.
Yeah.
Because they know what they can best deliver based off of what they have available and the connections they have. Decor is something which every single decor and florist has different connections with so many people, and every single one is gonna have different connections that they're gonna have. So it's definitely good to see what they're able to bring to the table more so. And that's really how I
Yes.
like to do it. We actually have what we'd call our decor day, which is so fun with our couples. We'll actually go around to 2 or 3 different florists or decor companies and be like, hey, this is the vision, this is the color palette, what can you bring me? And this is the budget. Like, what can you do for this wedding in this place and do that? And based off of that, the couple will see, hey, this is what this place can do, this is what
Yeah.
this place can do, and this really meets kind of the direction of where I want to go, so I want to go with this company, you know? That is the best way to approach it.
Yeah. So in my role as a designer, I mean, like color palette, talking high level in terms of like the shapes that are wanting, like if there's any specific elements, florals, you name it, fun characters, for example, to include in the wedding. That's all stuff I help kind of create and make sure is aligned and throughout everything. While I can get into the specifics of like floral arrangements, for example, since we're talking about like decorators, I can help with that. But at that point, unless like I'm sourcing the flowers myself, it is better to work with in conjunction with like a florist or a decorating house to really be able to pull from their inventory and maximize what you can do because they know their inventory better. I mean, as
They
you
do.
said, like they know their wholesalers, they know what prices that they can get. They know if they already have it. For example, if it's like a reusable piece, you know, maybe they're going to rent it to you for less than their initial purchase price because they've already rented it X
I mean,
number
that's
of
why we have
times.
some decor and other things too, right? We're like,
Yeah.
hey, you want these gold vases? We have these ones if you want them.
Yeah.
Since we already have them, we'll rent them to you
It's an
for a
option.
reasonable price, or an extensive like photo booth and other things. So it really does come down to letting them more so dictate the questions to provide something to you design wise, rather than you just telling them exactly what you want, detail by
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah, because they may even surprise you with some pieces from their inventory that, like, I and the couple might not have even realized that they had available, and that ends up being a perfect fit.
You know, true story here. On one of our floral design days that
I
we
know what
did,
you're doing, yeah.
we actually went around, and one of the requirements that the bride has was she really wanted orchids.
Yeah.
Orchids were the requirement. The one of the vendors, florist, was giving orchids for $12 an orchid, and another one was giving it for $80 an orchid.
I remember seeing those quotes, and I was gobsmacked, honestly.
And because, and that's why it's like, I know you love orchids, and if that is your requirement, the $8 one is definitely not the way to go because you're getting the exact, and it was the same orchid quality. It was not like it was significantly different or anything. So, definitely being a little bit more open and the more open you're able to be and the more flexible you are,
Yeah.
it does actually give you more options. Funny enough,
Yes.
and it can actually provide you with something which even you didn't envision as being possible. Like when we had the bride who was like, "Hey, I really want my guest seating chart to be something very interesting and something useful." And she was looking at like the acrylic signs and looking at LED signs and everything. And what we ended up, she was like, "What other ideas do you have?" We came back to her with things, and at the end of the day, she actually ended up having a tapestry
Yeah.
that was printed on, and it's actually a blanket that she's able to use later, something that she just hadn't thought of, and it costs the same
same.
as. So it was just letting the creatives really create can actually make your wedding budget go way
Way
further
farther.
than you think it can.
100%.
And I think there's one actually category that we do have to talk about.
Yes, music. It's a
Music.
big one.
So music, interestingly, is one aspect that I feel is more key to guest experience than people lead on.
It does create kind of an overarching atmosphere, right? Like the florals and like the visuals feed your eyes, but you need something for your other senses as well. And music and the right DJ potentially, or the right music vendor, can really add to that and elevate that experience.
So one of the most overlooked parts of a wedding budget, actually, in my opinion, is not the DJ, but the MC
Yes.
of the DJ.
Explain.
So a DJ and an MC are not the same thing. A DJ is really good at playing music, mixing music, and doing that. An MC is really good at setting the tone of the music, the atmosphere, the vibes, and all of that. A good DJ does not equal a good MC, and a lot of times you actually want them to be separate people.
Okay.
So, a good MC is one who really is able to set the tone. They're telling people what to do. They're getting people on their feet when they need to. They're getting people focused on specific aspects that they need to be focused on. If it's cake cutting time and no one's paying attention, a DJ is going to go, hey, everyone, hey, there's a cake cutting going on, like, check that out. Well, a great MC will instead set the tone being, how's everyone doing? Oh my gosh, we're about to go check out the cake.
Yo, look at that cake.
Exactly. I'm not an MC, so that's not what we do.
No,
but
we
they
can
really,
tell that that's not
no,
our
it's not
jobs.
our no. But it really does set a great tone though,
Yeah.
and vibe. We've been to weddings where the MCing is absolutely phenomenal. And everyone is so pumped up, excited. People that would never be dancing are dancing on the floor, things that you really need. And that means that but that doesn't mean that it has to be a fully separate person, right? If a DJ is just really good at being an MC as well, then that's great. DJs are ones that definitely play the music, but there's even a different way of approaching it. If you want a DJ who is playing exactly the music that you provide them, you don't need to spend a lot of money on a DJ.
That's true, especially if you know what your playlist is, what you want to play versus not play. You've already kind of picked out your key songs for key moments. Yeah, you don't need something super, super crazy.
If you want someone to curate it, make an experience, mix it up, make it feel like you're in Cabo or something,
Or
then
a club, yeah, it depends on what your vibe is.
then that is more experience, which usually equates to a more expensive DJ. So it really is about dictating out and figuring out what is important to you there.
Yeah, you could even go, for example, if you can hook up to the venue sound system, you could end up just doing Spotify playlists yourself or finding a already made one, for example, as like a good budget one. If you're really finding that your dollars are stretched, that might be a good investment for you. What I love seeing is that there's a greater appreciation nowadays for live musicians.
Live music is making a comeback, and I am
It
all
makes me
for
so
it.
happy.
Honestly, I kind of credit that to Bridgerton.
Yes, the instrumental covers of pop songs is definitely a growing genre, and I don't mind it. I mean,
honestly,
it's a
I've
great
heard
reimagining.
I've heard so many couples ask me for that, and I love hearing it every time. I'm always for it, honestly. It really is so nice, especially in ceremonies. Live music is making a huge comeback, and they'll usually do like ceremony and cocktail hour, and you can get very creative with the instruments too. We have a wedding coming up, and I don't know, maybe this episode will be released around then, where there's a guzheng player. It's a Chinese instrument for the ceremony. So fun. I mean, what a change for us. And it creates that atmosphere. It creates a vibe.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember we even had like a mariachi band for a bride too during cocktail hour? Whatever really, I mean, with live music, right, you need to find first like the musical genre that speaks to you, what kind of emotions and mood that genre brings out,
Right.
and then find the right space for it in your wedding. So it could be cocktail, could be ceremony. I mean, there's even space for live music in your reception as well too, either during dinner or...
You can have a full-fledged band, actually.
Yeah.
And honestly, sometimes it isn't that crazy of a price point to do it that way, where you have live music and then it transitions to a DJ. And a lot of times, you can actually get that through the same vendor company. So there are lots of bands out there who will be like, hey, the first 3 hours will be live music, and then we'll transition over to a DJ set and everything. And it
works.
It works. It's so good. And sometimes if you work with them together, you actually get it where there's a live instrumentalist with the DJ during reception time.
That's so cool.
And it's so fun. It'll be like, oh, there is a violinist and a saxophonist with this DJ, and they're all jamming together, and it's
It's
awesome.
awesome.
It is a great experience.
Yeah.
And it's something that has a huge impact not only during ceremony time, but in my opinion, the post dinner time. That's where that budget is really going.
You mean you need somebody that's not going to put the food coma people to sleep?
Exactly.
Yeah, post dinner is really where you need to start amping everybody up, readying to party again after witnessing a beautiful ceremony, after eating hopefully some delicious food. You want to get them up and excited again. So, having the right balance of the music, be it live, be it DJ, be it your Spotify playlist, but you need something to pump up the energy.
Exactly. And when you do that, definitely check out, when you're determining your budget, check out who you're getting. Check out their music online. I mean,
Yeah.
you can, a lot of them even have like days where you can go in and check out their music live and stuff. Check them out. Just see what they're doing and let them know what you want being done and how their process is and all of that when determining what's the right budget for it.
Yeah.
Usually, in terms of a budget standpoint, they're pretty upfront on what's included, what's not included. They are more of the all-inclusive style. The only time really where pricing really changes with them is when you're adding musicians or people or hours.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere where we do still negotiate with them a little bit, depending on just how large the band is or what their set is and hours and things like that. But it's much more straightforward and usually a pretty straightforward, easy job to do.
Yeah. So, when thinking about music, think about the atmosphere you want to create. Think of what's going to make the most impact, but then also think what's going to be, how much do you have to work with, right? Music's important, but is it as important as like the food, for example? Maybe not, but it also depends on what your priorities are. So think about what makes most sense to you and what you want for your mood at the end of the day.
And everyone's priorities are different.
100%.
So you really have to work based off of that.
That's what makes everybody's wedding unique.
It really does. A lot of people don't talk about the finer details of a budget. Everyone talks about the vendors that we just talked about, from catering, bar, photography, DJ,
All those, yeah. We're probably missing some.
outfits,
Yep.
things like that. But they don't talk about the other parts that can have a much bigger impact than people think it does, especially
Yes.
from a value standpoint. One of my favorites to talk about is stationery.
It can go crazy. I mean, like the world of stationery is like wide and vast.
I
but
love stationery.
But that's really where couples within their budget need to think about like what makes the most impact. Because do you need like a 15-piece invite on the day of? Maybe not. But like if that's important to you to have that experience of all those little bits and bobs, great. But I think at least in my opinion, is a better investment is the stationery and the signage on the day of.
Right. We spend a lot of time on seating charts and on bar signage
Yes.
and menus
Yes.
and table signage.
All of those are great opportunities for personalization.
Great to personalize, great to set a mood,
Yes.
great to set an experience, and usually not a crazy amount of budget if you play it right.
Okay.
If you play it right.
What tips and tricks do you have to play it right then?
So personalization is one of the best ways to really improve the guest experience for a
It
wedding.
is.
It comes down to the little details that you do,
It makes
things
it more
that
memorable.
you notice, and there may be personalizations that guests never notice, but there are also personalizations that some guests notice, and it really makes a difference. Like when we did the menus for that one couple, where we had a different fact on every menu in front of everyone. I mean, it's not something you have to announce or anything like that, but people started noticing it. People started seeing it, and then suddenly it became a huge frenzy of trading menus.
Yeah, it got people talking on those tables. Or, some tables knew each other, right? Their families. Some tables were just a collection of friends who hadn't met each other before. So those little moments of connection, those personalizations that create moments of connection are so special.
We did a 1920s themed event one time where instead of table numbers, each table was actually named after a famous person in the 1920s. And it was
Yes.
about them, facts about them. The table was themed around it.
Mm-hmm.
Fun to do. Doesn't really change the cost much from a budget standpoint, but made it memorable. Yeah.
I mean, so that one wasn't a wedding, but something else that I love that we did. So if you have a themed event or a themed wedding, finding ways to bring that theme out physically, because we even had people going around with like secret cards for like secret tests, you know, like almost like the mobsters, mafia, you know, secret prohibition characters that we hear about now in the
Right.
1920s. So anything that you can do to bring the personalization, bring the activities, get people connecting in your wedding. I mean, the clothespin game that people do is so fun. You know, it makes it more memorable for all the attendees.
Yeah, no, that one being 1920s themed, yeah, it wasn't a wedding, but even with that, like we had a person going around giving bags of chocolate coins, um, dressed in a gangster suit.
I mean, everybody thankfully came on theme with their
Yeah.
like 1920s dress, so it just added to the ambiance. But we'll talk about like outfits in a different episode and how to bring that theme through there. But yes, just get creative with how you can bring your wedding to life and the activities and the memories.
One of my favorite signage things that we did was for a wedding where the couple's signature drink, the description of the signature drink wasn't actually just a description of the drink. It was also a description of that couple itself. It was one where the sign, it was like a spicy margarita and it was like hot and spicy, and that actually described the bride very well. And it was her drink, and then the groom's drink was old fashioned, and it was like common,
Cool and
classic.
collected, yeah, or something like that, yeah.
It's something which guests
They
may not notice,
noticed,
but
but-
they knew about it. They loved telling everyone about it. I mean, it really was a fun detail. And when
Yeah.
guests were learning about it and hearing about it, it made them go, wow, this is really well thought out. And that affects the perception of an event as well, and just improves that overall feel. So yeah, signage can go such a long way, honestly. Like you should really have fun with it. Even seating charts. You don't have to do a simple standard seating chart, little icon things. For similar pricing, you can actually get so many other options too. You can do a giant sign. You could do a puzzle that reveals a giant photo. You know,
Yeah.
like
You can even think differently about place card names. Like if you're actually giving like assigned seating where you want people in specific seats, like you can think about that a little differently. We've seen couples do like a little packet of seats because like sustainability was really important to them. We've seen that also be like the wedding favor or the oh, I just lost my train of thought. So we've seen the place cards be like a wedding favor. Oh, that can be an activity. That's what I was thinking. So the place card holder like could be another area of personalization with like a little fact. We've seen other couples do like thank you letters, personalized thank you letters on those place cards to really just again create those moments of impact, those moments of like connection and memory. Prioritize that. Like if you have extra budget or extra time, think about how you and your hopefully your planner can go down to those little nitty-gritty finer details to really bring the experience up.
for sure. And I think that leads me to the next thing that I think is underappreciated, and I honestly think is almost always worth the spend is entertainment. It doesn't just mean photo booths
Or DJs.
or
yeah.
DJs. It actually there's so many other things. We've done a claw machine. I mean, the claw machine was so fun. We actually had they had put in a bunch of little gifts and tchotchkes and things that they put in a bunch of gifts and little tchotchkes and things that were fun. But there was one ball that they put in there that said that you can ask the couple out to dinner any day that you want.
Yeah.
And that claw machine was running. Everyone wanted it.
Yes.
It was so funny. But even other things, like we've done a golf simulator.
Yes.
We've done a football game that we did in Wisconsin because the Packers were playing, and
Yeah.
that was big for them. So,
We've done to add like to personalized photo booths because you can like I mean obviously you can purchase like a stand or like a 360 which we have to rent, but you can even get creative with the photo booth wall even as well. We were able to source hand painted tiles from Mexico and create that beautiful
Right.
backdrop too.
And from a wedding budget standpoint, it costs just a few hundred more than renting a photo booth anyway, so it's worth it.
Yeah.
It was impactful for them and it really affected them. So
Yeah.
think about that way on how you can really focus on entertainment because guests love entertainment.
They like activities, things to do. We've seen brides do scavenger hunts during their receptions as well. We've done even like face painting, hennas, even like henna artists coming during reception as well. So like there's totally a bunch of different options. Depends on what you like and what you want to bring your guests into as well. If there's extra budget, a great place to invest it is something for guests to do other than dancing.
So then places that couples tend to spend a lot on that I do think you don't need to as much is a lot of times couples do overspend on favors and gifts.
Yes.
I don't have an issue with spending money on favors and gifts. I have an issue with spending money on favors and gifts that no one's ever going to use.
I think most would agree with you in this day and age. Spending money just to spend money isn't on anybody's or very many people's priority list. So especially when it comes to favors, make
Like
it useful.
if the favor's like a photo caricature of the couple with their name on it, as cute and as beautiful as that is,
The family might
the
appreciate
family
it.
appreciates it, but a lot of guests won't because it just doesn't take up space. They just don't have the space for it. So
Yeah.
definitely think about how you're using that money if you're going to have favors. And
Right now, it's not even required. We're seeing a lot of couples choose to pass on wedding favors, which is totally an option too. There's other ways to
no,
do it.
I
It
always
might not
say
be
that you should
required.
show appreciation to your wedding party
Yes.
for the time and effort. If they're buying their own outfits and all that stuff, show appreciation there somehow. Whether you're giving them a gift card, taking them out to dinner, they're putting in the time and effort. So we're definitely
Yeah.
not saying don't do that. The people who are helping you for free deserve some
Yes.
love, 100%. But yeah,
sure.
wedding favors aren't necessarily the way to go if you don't need to.
And think about ways, again, personalization in this one. If you choose to have a wedding favor, make it useful, but also make it personal to you. Be it, if you're a baker and you want to bake like mini muffins for all of your guests, go right ahead. If tea or like a specific coffee bean is really important, you might want just like a little sachet of that. Like there's so many options nowadays where you can get things on a small scale and like in cute packaging, beautiful packaging that could elevate the experience.
Another thing that I do think couples overspend on a lot of times is it really does come down to the decor and how they do it. Specifically the pipe and draping. Pipe and draping it just is how it is, an extremely expensive part of decor.
I mean, if you think about it, fabric's expensive.
Yeah,
Like blinds and curtains aren't cheap as well. But
So when couples are like, oh, I just want some curtains that are 15 feet tall hanging there, it's like, I don't think you realize how expensive that's going to be. So definitely be careful on how you're using pipe and drape. If you are definitely on a budget, try to avoid it as much as possible. That'll go a long way. And even when you're looking at florals, sometimes just think about greenery versus actual flowers. Greenery usually tends to be a little bit more affordable than
yeah,
bright
Than actual
roses and
buds
actual
and-
buds and
yeah.
that. So that could be one way to get more of it in without actually having to break the bank.
yes. With decor especially, you have to kind of look at it from two perspectives, right? One, close up, like where you're actually close, you're looking, you're able to examine like all the different leaves and whatever, all the different shapes. But also take a 50-foot step back. Like, does it still look beautiful and cohesive? Because that might also help fine tune of exactly how much investment do you want in there. Because if guests are always going to be 50 feet away from it, you don't need to spend a crazy amount on it. Like, make the shape and obviously the
Right.
visual impact look beautiful. Do you need some super very specific type of clover or something, or some specific like flower, for example? Probably not. You're going to get away with something similar or even omission, and it's not going to sacrifice the overall impact.
Another thing I always like to tell couples is if you're stuck between two options or three options because all of them seem like good options, just go with the cheapest one.
Yeah, if they're all kind of equally the same to you, like same impact, same value add.
And one of them's $2,000, one of them's $4,000, and one of them's $8,000. Just go with the $2,000 option if you're happy with all three of them.
Yeah, there's no reason to spend more if the lowest relative price is going to meet your
Right.
needs.
Interestingly enough, I have always at least suggested that way, that if I have an option where, just for easy numbers here, if venue costs $30,000 and decor budget is $10,000 versus having another place where venue is $10,000 and decor is $30,000, even if you're at $40,000 spend at the end of the day, I almost always recommended the couple to go with the $10,000 venue and spend the extra $30,000 if the guest experience and everything else will be the same, because I feel that you can really make a space really nice if you.
Yeah, it's going to make your space feel more elevated generally if you can put more things in it. So even
sure.
if it's like the white box that I can get bored of, but like if you can put $40,000 of accoutrements in there, it's going to create a bigger impact than like a $40,000 venue where you just have like two
Right.
table runners, for example.
Right.
Not that that's what you can get, but
Funny enough, that was actually a reason why a couple decided to go with a different venue that we were doing a venue tour for, was because they found a place that was architecturally gorgeous. But because of how much it cost, being a pricier venue, their decor budget was less. And if they actually looked at all the other photos, most people were going that route because that's just what it was, an more expensive venue.
Right.
And they were concerned that their wedding photos would look the exact same as everyone else's wedding photos.
for sure.
And they were like, no, I'll rather go with the cheaper venue that I can put more money into decor in, so I'm really making it feel unique and special to them, you know, and that was their focus. So it's all those creative things you just have to do for budget, and that really is just how it works.
It's all about finding ways to spend less on categories that aren't as important or aren't as impactful to your specific wedding, and then putting those extra dollars in the spaces that will be a better impact and meet your priorities for not only you, the guests, visually, and focusing and capitalizing on those smaller details to get that extra mile out of that section of budget.
For sure.
When determining your wedding budget and how to spend it, ask what will and won't matter in 20 years. Think about what feelings you want to evoke, the conversations, the guest experience, the family moments, the intentional details, and the time together.
Budget creates an event. Your decisions create the memory. My name is AJ, head planner of Koka-Lattes Events, a boutique full-service event planning and design company in Chicago.
And I'm Elizabeth, the head designer of Koka-Lattes Events. And if you've liked this episode of Events and Koka-Lattes, please share, like, subscribe, and we will catch you on the next one.